On the 4th of July, 1880, Mary Wright left her family's house in Bonsall with her 3-year-old daughter. After midnight, she knocked at a neighbor's door, soaked through. Only Mary had come back. In the hours that followed, she admitted she'd gone into the mere intending that both she and her daughter would drown. This is a true account built from the surviving records, following the evidence to understand how a village daughter met the full weight of Victorian shame, law, and mercy. To understand the woman at the center of the storm, we first need to find the child she was. We begin our search nearly 20 years before the tragedy, in the pages of the 1861 census. Here at number 3, the bank, in the heart of Bonsall, we find Mary Wright and her family. The head of the household is James Wright, age 34, a grocer. His wife Alice is the same age, and among their children is 7-year-old Mary. The record lists her as a scholar. This small detail is significant. In 1861, years before education became compulsory, it shows that Mary's family valued schooling and suggests she was literate, a fact that would become critically important later on. This single census page paints a picture of a stable, respectable family embedded in their community. It gives us our first fixed point for Mary. Born in Bonsall around 1854, a daughter in a seemingly secure home. Our story takes its first turn 16 years later. The next key document comes not from a census, but from the civil registration of births. On the 6th of May, 1877, a baby girl named Adeline is born in Bonsall. In the column for the mother's name, it clearly states Mary Wright, but the space for the father's name is left blank. This was the official record of an illegitimate birth. For a grocer's daughter in a tight-knit Victorian village, this was a profound social transgression. The birth of Adeline would have marked Mary, setting her apart and making her vulnerable to gossip and judgment. She and her child lived under her father's roof, but their position was precarious, dependent on the tolerance of a family whose reputation was paramount. For 3 years, it seems this fragile arrangement held. But in the summer of 1880, it was about to shatter completely. The events that destroyed Mary Wright's world began on a single-day Sunday, the 4th of July, 1880. Our knowledge of that day comes from newspaper reports published in the aftermath. The most detailed accounts come from the committal hearing at the Matlock Petty Sessions, where witnesses gave sworn testimony. Her father, James Wright, recounted a devastating conversation he had with Mary that morning. He told the court that it had come to his knowledge that she was pregnant again. His words, reported in local papers, were chillingly precise. "I really will not allow such kind of work in my house, and you will have to go away somewhere." He said she was disgracing him. It was an ultimatum. For Mary, a second illegitimate child, meant expulsion from her home, the loss of her family, and complete social ruin. The shame and desperation must have been overwhelming. Later that day, witnesses saw Mary with her daughter. Around 8 that evening, William and Thomas Bunting met her on a lane leading toward Grange Mill. William called out a friendly warning, "Mary, you'll be getting lost up here." Her reply was confident and familiar. "I've been up this way too often to be getting lost." The exchange shows her deep knowledge of the local landscape, the paths and fields she'd known since childhood, and a hauntingly normal moment before the darkness fell. Around midnight, a frantic knocking broke the silence at the home of Elizabeth Spencer, a neighbor who lived just 50 yards from the Wrights. On her doorstep stood Mary Wright. The newspaper accounts of Mrs. Spencer's testimony are vivid. She saw instantly that Mary's clothes were soaking wet. "Have you been in some water?" she asked. "Yes," Mary replied. "Where is Addie?" Elizabeth asked, noticing Mary was holding Adeline's little blue shawl and bonnet. The reply was devastating. "She's on the moor, in the water." Elizabeth ran to wake James Wright, and together with her husband, Henry, they took a lantern to one of James's fields that contained a small pond, or mere. Henry waded into the dark, shallow water and found the small body. "It is here," he said softly. "Poor little thing." He carried Adeline's body back to the house. She was dead. The official inquiry began swiftly. The inquest was held on Tuesday, the 6th of July, at the Barley Mow Inn in Bonsall. The jury heard from key witnesses: James, who identified the body; Henry Spencer, who described finding her; and Dr. Gregory, who performed the postmortem. He found no marks of violence. The cause of death was asphyxia from suffocation, and he believed the body had not been in the water long. Based on this evidence, the jury returned a cautious, open verdict of found drowned. Adeline's death certificate, registered on the 10th of July, records the same, found drowned. At this stage, the official record stopped short of accusation, but the whispers in Bonsall had already begun. The full truth emerged a week later, on Wednesday, the 14th of July, at the Matlock Petty Sessions. The courtroom was packed, the approaches thronged, as the Derbyshire Times reported. This was the hearing that would decide if Mary would stand trial for murder. Elizabeth Spencer, now recovered from childbirth and able to attend, gave her full account. She described Mary's state that night, her bleeding hands, her exhaustion, and how, after being taken home, Mary confessed her intentions. In her own bedroom, she told Elizabeth, "I did not throw it in. I took it into my arms and meant to die with it. I have heard people say drowning is an easy death, but I could not do it, though I had been in the water more than 2 hours." To her mother, she had said only, "Don't cry, mother. There's no one to blame but myself." Then came the most damning evidence. A nurse, Matilda Wagstaff, testified that while she was tending to Mary, Mary's sister Annie found a letter in a drawer. The letter was read aloud in court. In it, Mary acknowledged her pregnancy and wrote of her intention to drown both herself and her child so that her family would not be troubled with her any longer. Her father could not swear the handwriting was hers, but Matilda Wagstaff, who had seen her write before, positively identified it. The court accepted it. The defense solicitor, Mr. Skidmore, cross-examined Dr. Gregory about melancholia in pregnancy, suggesting that Mary's mind had been disturbed. The doctor acknowledged that a dull, vacant look and avoidance of company could be symptoms. This was corroborated by Police Constable Hall, who described Mary as wild-eyed, muttering, "I wish I'd saved my child." Despite these questions about her mental state, the evidence of her confession in the letter was too strong. The magistrates committed Mary Wright for trial at the Derby Assizes on the charge of willful murder. The trial followed later that month. Mary Wright was found guilty of murdering her daughter. The mandatory sentence was death by hanging. Yet, a small but powerful detail appeared in the Sheffield Daily Telegraph. The judge, Baron Huddleston, did not wear the black cap when passing sentence. This was a deliberate signal assigned to the Home Secretary that he believed the sentence should not be carried out. The signal was understood. Within days, news arrived of Mary's reprieve. Her Majesty had extended mercy. Mary Wright would not hang. Her sentence was commuted to penal servitude. In the late Victorian era, this was common for cases of infanticide or maternal filicide where extreme distress or mental illness was evident. Mary served 7 years of her 10-year sentence and was released on conditional license in 1887. Remarkably, she returned to Bonsall. The 1891 census finds her living once again at the Dale in her father's house. James Wright, now 65 and a widower, is head of the household. Mary, age 37 and single, is listed as his housekeeper. Her sister Esther and a 4-year-old girl, Annie Wright, James's granddaughters, are also present. Baptismal records show Annie was Esther's child, another illegitimate birth, but one that did not result in tragedy. The family had endured and reformed. By 1911, Mary was 58, still living with her aged father, caring for him. The woman once cast out for disgrace had become his caretaker and anchor. When her father died in 1913, his probate record, valued at over £500, named Mary as one of his executors. The man who had once ordered her from his home now entrusted her with his estate. The final trace of Mary Wright comes from an administrative record of a woman by that name who died on the 27th of January, 1917 in South Darley, the next parish over. Her age, location, and circumstances fit perfectly. After a life defined by the events of 1880, Mary appears to have lived out her later years quietly. Near the place where her story began, dying at around 63 years old. Yet one question remains unanswered: the fate of the unborn child she carried that summer. The newspapers fall silent on what became of that pregnancy. Perhaps she miscarried under the immense physical and emotional strain. Perhaps she gave birth in prison, and the child was sent away or died in infancy. Without new evidence, a medical log, a birth record, or certificate, we may never know. The fate of this second child remains the final secret in Mary Wright's life. Her story is a stark reminder of the immense pressures placed upon women in the 19th century and the desperate lengths to which shame and social exclusion could drive them. The records reveal a justice system capable of both severe judgment and profound mercy in a woman who, despite public condemnation and tragedy, returned to the heart of her family to live out her days quietly in the village that had both destroyed and forgiven her.